there was a flood warning last night. It started raining around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock last night in LA. And when I woke up, I saw in the news that it was flooding in the Bay Area in Northern California, where I was living before. So, yeah, like, I mean, it's gloomy and it's gray, and I am solar powered. Okay. Let's just, let's just say that right now. I'm a solar powered battery. I thrive on the sun. I get seasonal affective disorder in the winter, but I acknowledge California needs rain. And so I'm very happy that it's raining. I'm not happy about like negative effects of weather on people, and but I am happy that California is getting some rain. There's this joke online where anytime there is rain, all Californians are like, oh, we needed this. And it's true, I think. Like, we don't like it, but we're like, yeah, we needed this. Anyway, I don't have a plan for today's live stream, which can mean one of two things. It can mean one, this ends up being very boring, or two, it becomes real unhinged real quick because then I'll just start telling stories. And then because I don't have a plan, I don't have a filter, and I just start telling stories that I not like 100% regret, but I'm like, maybe next time we go in with a game plan. But one thing I am very excited about that I did have a game plan for is a while ago on Threads. If you follow me on Threads, I do post regularly on Threads. And Threads is Instagram's answer to Twitter. So, for those of you who don't know, after Threads kind of imploded, different companies started creating like a similar social media platform where it's just mostly text based and it's all on one page and you're just kind of scrolling either your followers or the people you follow or just like the For You page, but it's like text based, not video based like TikTok. And Instagram started their own called Threads, and I'm on Threads and I post fairly regularly. And like a few weeks ago, I had said, like, I have half a mind to invite some of my industry friends to talk about the Spring Summer 26 shows and just give their unfiltered commentary as people working in the industry. And people really liked that thread. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And so this past weekend, we did a Zoom recording where we talked about lots of things like stuff we loved, you know. Hi, Leslie. Hi, Maria. Uh, we talked about stuff we loved, of course. You know, we're not all just a bunch of negative Nellies. There are plenty of things to love. And we definitely talked about things that we did not love. And it'll be coming out on the main channel on Thursday. I'm really excited. I've already edited the first pass. And I'm going to start inserting like runway footage and stuff like that. And maybe editing things out for length, but I think it's good. It's fun. Like the ladies and I were cackling and just having a good time. Just there's a couple of designers where I'm like, get out of here. We're so done with you. Like, and then there are some that are like, hi, Sammy fan. Hi, Jay Sherman. Good morning. And then there's some where I'm like, I can't wait to see more from you. I am so excited. So that's coming up on the main channel on Thursday. And in terms of this channel, Operation Reentry, last Friday, I did muslins and fittings and pattern corrections for a tank I want to make for myself, inspired by the latest Balenciaga collection. And spoiler alert, I will tell people what I think of the Balenciaga show. Like everyone else should watch the Thursday's video for the rest of my opinions, but I've already announced how much I like the Balenciaga collection, and that I think Pier Paolo Piscioli is going to do even better things coming up. And the Balenciaga collection had a lot of black leather, a lot of leather, but like a lot of black leather in it. And I love black leather. I kind of always have a roll of black leather just hanging out, waiting for inspiration to strike in my studio. So I decided to make myself a tank, which is not it's not a style on the Balenciaga runway. It's not a copy of any one particular style, but it's just something I wanted to make for myself, inspired by the Balenciaga collection. And then this coming Friday, I'm gonna be. It's gonna show the video of me like finalizing the pattern correction and uh, cutting and sewing it out of the leather. If you follow me on Instagram, over the weekend, I did a poll as to what lining I should use, whether I should use the modal jersey or the cotton shirting. And let me explain to you a couple of things. Number one, I really did not want to buy anything new for this tank. I wanted to just make something and like use up my stash. And I felt like those two were reasonably okay enough for linings. And number two, so the thing about sewing lining to a tank top, it's a little bit tricky. And there's this method called the burrito roll. Okay. And you can look it up online. There are lots of tutorials showing how to do the burrito roll sewing method to sew a lined tank. And Jay Sherman says, I would love to be a model for your clothes. Well, I'm only making clothes for myself right now, so I'm the model. um, and But in order to have to do a burrito roll, your fabrics have to either be stretchy or very thin. And the leather is bulky. It's lambskin, it's very thin, but it's still too bulky to turn inside out into like one little shoulder strap. And so I did have this idea of how I could finesse it. Uh, which is not like an industry standard way of sewing up the armholes. But then I was thinking if I had a stretchy lining, I might be able to do the burrito roll sewing technique. So that's why I was looking at the modal jersey. And then the cotton shirting, it's very stiff. It doesn't stretch at all. What I had originally used it for, like I only have about a yard left, but the what I used it for was lining leather bustiers I was making and selling a few years ago. And when you are trying to line a bustier, and I'm not even talking about like a very formal corset that's made in the traditional sense, you still want something that is very stiff, very non-stretch, like 100% not stretchy at all. You want something that's going to hold the shape, hold the body in, all these strengths. And so I had chosen this black cotton. It's not heavy. It's not a bottom weight. It's very thin, but at the same time, it's very rigid. It's very strong. And it's not like a soft, blousey sort of material. And so those are my two options. And here's the thing. And you might be mad at me about it, but get over it because this is just what it is. And I know you will relate on some level. Is in the poll, the cotton shirting won 42% to 58%. But here's the thing is the people I know on Instagram that work in the industry and have worked it, like one of my girlfriends she's been working at a contemporary women's wear company in materials development for years. And then I have another friend who's been working in luxury retail his whole career. And so they voted for modal jersey. And I'm sorry, their votes just carry more weight. Like, because they have experience in this sort of thing. And so uh, you'll see who I pick or which fabric I pick in this Friday's video. But in that video, I am going to go over how I drafted the lining for this tank. I know there's not a ton of information on how to do linings. And so I'm going to go over how I did the pattern for the lining for the tank. Spoiler alert, you do not just cut the same pattern for lining, okay? There are different kinds of lining, but if you're doing like a traditional lining where you sew a shell, you sew a lining, and then you sew them together to create the garment, you need to draft a different pattern for it, okay? Hi, Amaris. Hi, Chauvin. Thank you for joining us. And so there are some places in a lining pattern that need to be smaller than the shell pattern. And there are some places in a lining pattern that need to be bigger than the shell pattern. Okay. And there are different reasons for that. And I do go over that in the video. I'm always looking for more lining information because people just don't like to talk about it. You know, there's a lot of unlined stuff, which is a shame because, first of all 99% of leather things need lining. A lot of things need lining. The removal of lining to ready to wear is a quality issue. It's a quality issue. It's expensive to add linings because of materials and sewing and labor in the cutting and everything. And so companies, that's a cost cutting measure, is to remove linings out of things. And so people do less linings and they do workarounds with finished seams and facings. And, you know, there's special knowledge in learning how to draft lining patterns. Like, all of that is missing, and it is a quality issue. Lined jackets last longer. And, you know, adding lining doesn't necessarily make something a lot warmer. I mean, it can, depending on the fabric that you use, but it's not always about that. You know, it's about adding another layer against the shell fabric, you know, protecting the shell fabric from your skin's oils and sweat and everything, especially with outerwear that you don't wash as often as like a t-shirt or your underwear. Hello, Amaris' sister, Alicia. And so having a properly sewn lining is a marker of quality, okay? Tyler says, love a lined garment. I'm a sucker for a Hong Kong, though. I think they're talking about a Hong Kong finish. And yeah, Hong Kong finish is beautiful. There's a time and place for everything, for lining, for really beautiful finished seams. But if you don't have like beautiful finished seams on the inside, hi Violet Femme, good morning, then it's just cheap looking. Like, if the inside just has overlock seams and then like a folded up hem, it's like, that's cheap. Okay, they should have thrown in a lining. So you're either doing like beautiful finished seams on the inside, you know, like when you look at a jean jackets are traditionally not lined, but it's fine because they have welt seams, which are clean finish on the inside. You don't have like a lot of like, you know, fraying edges and stuff flapping about on the inside of a jean jacket, you know, that sort of thing. So you got to find a time and place for having nice finished seams versus linings. But honestly, there are so many things I see in the market where it would have been infinitely better with a lining. Tyler says, but yes, could you imagine putting a fitted wool jacket with no lining? Exactly. That's also like 100% wool it can get scratchy. Y'all know how I feel about my armpits. Like, do not bother my armpits. Okay. If you bother my armpits, no, absolutely not. Okay. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's like, I've always been kind of like, oh, my armpits are sensitive, but there have been like several comments on the channel here and there where people are like, yeah, sensitive armpits are a thing. Me too. And I'm like, vindicated. The other thing about lining that's also important is sleeve lining, because especially when you're wearing like a cotton shirt that's not shiny, that's not slick, it kind of gets stuck on stuff. You know, I have a tendency to like hold on to the wrists of my clothes when I put my arm through a sleeve, because so many things are unlined, and so the sleeve is going to get my shirt sleeve is going to get stuck inside my jacket sleeve. You don't want that. You want a slippery lining in your jacket sleeves so that your arm can slide through without messing up your clothes. And so that's like another benefit to lining. I've actually seen some jackets where they only have a sleeve lining for this purpose. They have like a really thin, very slippery sleeve lining, and then the body has just like kind of like a nice back facing, front facing, and it's like clean finish. I don't love that look. Quality wise, I like it better than not having lining. But yeah, it's a per case by basis, but I do see kind of like by and large, people are not lining things. Violet Femme says, do you care if the lining is made of polyester or other man-made fabrics? Well, it depends on the shell. I always think that the shell and the lining need to coordinate. Like if you have to be thoughtful in pairing them together, because I'm not someone who thinks that there's no place in the world for polyester. There are some things, not everything. There are some things where polyester is the best option, and in that case, you can throw in a polyester lining. It's not gonna, you've already kind of lost the breathability element of a natural fiber. So to have a polyester lining, or it could be you could have a polyester lining that's woven to have moisture wicking properties, like more performance properties, and that's what that's there for. Like if you have a windbreaker and you're trying to keep heat in, and so you have something that's like a polyester shell, maybe you could have something with natural fibers as the lining to absorb the sweat in between the outer layer and your body, or you could have some sort of polyester mesh where it is polyester but you're still getting like a breathing layer. It's really about pairing things appropriately. But if you have a silk blouse or silk jacket, like a silk satin, Duchess satin sort of jacket, and you put a polyester lining in that, I will send you to fashion jail so fast. Straight to jail, okay? Straight to jail. Because you lose all the beautiful qualities of silk, the breathability and the luxuriousness, like everything, like performance and aesthetics of silk when you throw in a polyester lining. Cheaper silk lining alternatives exist, like a Habitai. Habitai is generally my go-to. It's, you get a silk Habitai. It's inexpensive. It's thin. It's slippery enough to put into sleeves. Like that's my go-to for lining silk. So you always have to match the shell with your lining or coordinate and see what's going to go well together. Okay. Shoulders get it bad with cheap wool. Well, cheap anything. Like if it's important for you to structure something, you need to get the right fabric to support that. So I've seen something be too small without a lining and just right with one, oddly. Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is. Like sometimes, depending on the silhouette and the performance, the purpose of the material or the garment, you can make the lining smaller so that the lining is the thing that is sucking you in and giving you the structure and holding you in. Or you can have the lining be a tiny bit bigger than your shell so there's room to move. Like in your standard traditional blazer, your lining will be just a little bit bigger. So when you pull on a blazer and move around and button your, there's like room to wiggle around and for the lining to move around. And so that you're not adjusting your jacket lining to be perfectly aligned with your shell's shape to get your, like, the lining has like a little bit of room to kind of move around with your clothes in there. Not a ton, but a little bit. And if you ever see a lined blazer, you'll see how the lining, it folds over the hem. That's a lot of the give that you have, like when you pull on a blazer. If it was lined perfectly, the size was exactly the same, you wouldn't have any give, and it would look like it's like pulling. And if it's not sewn absolutely perfectly, then it'll look puckering from the outside. It'll look like something's pulling weird from the outside. So you want to have that little bit of wiggle room for both construction and wearing comfort purposes. So when you draft a lining, you have to think about all those things, like what fabric you're using, whether the fiber content coordinates with the shell fabric, whether uh, it needs to be smaller. There's underlining, which is a completely different thing. And underlining is when you do cut the same pattern piece as your shell. Okay. And when I say shell, okay, some people use the words shell and self fabric interchangeably. I do not. When I say shell, I mean the outside of a garment, and that includes the self and whatever contrast fabrics you have. So if you have a baseball jacket and it's like a white body with a red sleeve, that's just all the shell, even if it's two fabrics. If it's two different fabrics, it's a self and a contrast. So self fabric will be your main, probably the white, because it's your body. And then your sleeve is your contrast, but together that's your shell. That's the outside. And then whatever's on the inside is lining, right? So you could do an underlining where the two pattern pieces are cut exactly the same. They use the same pattern piece, but they function as one fabric. Oftentimes they'll be sewn all around the edges together, like inside the seam allowance, so you don't see that stitch line anymore when it's all sewn up, excuse me. And then it functions as one fabric. And that can be for structural purposes. If you like the surface appearance of a certain fabric, but you need it to be a little bit stronger to support whatever silhouette you're making, it can be a layering effect. Like, let's say you do like a sheer outer shell, but you don't want it to be a sheer garment, so you underline it with something. But for warmth, you want another lining, so you underline it and then have a different lining to cover up all the seams and everything. So you just have to be thoughtful for all the layers that you want and how they function. But unless it's an underlining situation, your lining pattern needs to be a different pattern piece than your shell pieces. And the tank, it's just front and back. And so it's a really simple, and so it's like a short lesson, like clipped in the middle of the video, but it'll show you kind of like the beginning stages of how to start drafting lining patterns. Okay. Silk garment with polyester lining gives cringe. Yes, Tyler, it is one of my fashion pet peeves. In the Thursday video, we start with a round of fashion pet peeves. And in the comments, if you know my number one fashion pet peeve, write them in the comments. Because I say this all the time, like I hate it so much. But yeah, silk garments with polyester linings is definitely up there on my list. Violet Femme says, I try to buy clothing with natural lining, but I find it is harder to find than clothing with an all-natural shell. Yeah, it is a cost-cutting measure where clothing manufacturers often correctly assume that we only care about what the shell fabric is. It's like, 100% linen on the outside with a polyester lining, ew. Like that's just as bad. Lining is breathable, it's soft, it's airy. Not soft. Like linen can be a little bit rough. I just mean in terms of like ease of wearing. Like linen is kind of meant to be wrinkled, so you can wear it wrinkled. It's easy to wear. It's got like soft girl vibes. I think that's what I was going for. Not necessarily like it's a soft fabric like a lot of lighter silks are, but then to like put in like a crunchy polyester on the inside is like, ew, ew. If you watched my my rayon video on the main channel, then you know that hemp mills are doing really beautiful thin hemp blends with linens, with modal, like all these things. So yeah, there's more options than ever to not have polyester. Again, there are times where polyester is the thing, mostly in terms of like performance fabrics. So there's times where it's a thing. Here's the thing, okay? And I will say this till I'm blue in the face. I'm testing out a new foundation because my skin is breaking out. Look at this. I've become a teenager again. How am I, a perimenopausal woman, going through puberty again? It is so annoying. Everyone's like, all the women who are about my age, and, I talk to women, middle-aged women about perimenopause and stuff, and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm getting wrinkles and crepey and, all this stuff, and I'm going gray. And I'm like, I'm going gray too. Not a ton. You can't really tell on this kind of like tiny screen and stuff. And I'm getting a little bit of a neck waddle. I don't care. Okay. Aging is a blessing. My mom died when she was 37. And so the fact that I get to live to this ripe old age of 45 right now, a blessing. And I mean that. I'm not even being a little bit sarcastic. I don't know why all of a sudden my skin is oilier than it's ever been in its entire life. And I have like a huge one down here too. Like, what? Pick a lane, body, okay? Either be teenage or be old. Like what? Like what is happening? And I just kind of feel like I have to use new skincare now because my body's just like fritzing. It doesn't know whether to be hot or cold. Everybody in pop culture makes fun of hot flashes. I have cold flashes. I get cold flashes. Like I will just be doing whatever and then all of a sudden need a sweater just out of nowhere. I will crawl into bed and pile blankets on in summer in LA. It's stupid. Anyway, what I was saying before I got distracted, I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. It doesn't matter if your product is polyester, if it's organic, sustainable, recycled linen, piece silk. It does not matter if you have the most sustainable, ethically made, whatever product, sweatshop free, like all those things. It does not matter if you keep making so much stuff. Stop making so much stuff. Stop making so much crap. Okay, first of all, this is why one of the foundations of sustainability for me is thoughtful design. Make something somebody actually wants or needs. Okay, first of all. Okay, that's why I have no problem giving people shit when they, screen print dumb shit onto t-shirts and call themselves a fashion designer. Get out of here. Okay. I am a huge, thoughtful design is the number one step. Number two, stop making so much of it. It doesn't matter if you have the most sustainable product in the world. If you make too many and you have to end up dumping or repurposing 300 because you just made too many. And I know everyone can occasionally mess up and overorder. They got optimistic and they made a mistake and they ordered too many and now they have to do something. I understand that. Like that happens. It absolutely happens. But it also happens that they plan for it. Like they don't care. Like they don't care. Plenty of companies, they just don't care. They just plan for it. They plan to, they have corporate policies in place specifically designed to get rid of overstock that don't have anything to do with offloading them onto charities or selling them at a discount. Plenty of them rip across the back so homeless people won't dumpster dive for them and then they toss them. So it doesn't matter. Everybody makes too much stuff. Period. That's why with my brand, I'm leaning towards just making like 5 of each style and then never making it again. Like just so that I can express myself creatively and then not just put out more stuff into the universe. MG says, I love your intelligence and you're absolutely providing facts. Thank you for this woman. Thank you. Tyler says, right, you have the movement pleats in the back lining. Yeah, that's another one. Where when you have, that's another marker of quality in a blazer or any kind of sport coat, suit jacket, like blazer style jacket, or even a lot of like non-blazer style jackets, like a bomber jacket, is you will have a pleat, a fold in the lining at center back neck. So you just have like a little bit of extra room in there, like wiggle around so the lining doesn't get caught anywhere. Okay. Violet Femme says, I have a lambskin skirt with a polyester mesh lining, so I'm not too worried about the breathability, but I would have been so annoyed if the skirt had been a silk shell. Yeah. Yeah, the leather, like people use polyester linings for leather all the time because the leather is blocking everything. You're not breathing in leather. So that's not really an issue. If you want something a little bit more higher quality for your leather garments, I vote rayon. Like for my leather tank, if I was buying out and like going to the garment district to buy something new for this tank, I would go looking for like a Bemberg lining. I went over that in the rayon video on my main channel. Violet Femme says, I love the nuance that you provide on these issues. Thank you. It's also my downfall, okay? Because I don't have a lot of, you know who makes it in social media? People who scream absolutes and make controversial reels screaming absolutes into their reels and TikToks. And then their comments are filled with people arguing about them. And then they get all their engagement up. And I don't do that. Sometimes I will occasionally accidentally say something controversial, like an absolute that triggers people. But for the most part, I'm like, shades of gray. And people are like, oh. Here's an example of that. I was talking about how if you do a plus size line, like if you already have a straight size line and you want to expand into plus size line, I had said something to the effect of plus size clothes for the same style should not cost more than the straight size version. And in the video, the YouTube video I made, and I honestly forget which video that was, but in the YouTube video I made, I went through all the reasons why it should be the same price. But in Instagram Reel land, where you have 60 seconds to make your point, I was hoping, you know, I posted the link and the title of the video and everything. I was hoping that people would see that and run over to watch the full video, but they did not. They just got super mad at me about all kinds of stuff. And then I just stopped visiting the comments because everybody was screaming at me and I cannot deal. I've been doing YouTube for too long. I have no patience to talk to screamers. I never did. Like in my personal life, once you start raising your voice, I'm like, okay, bye. Like no, you will not talk to me that way. The end. Bye. And so everyone was screaming at me in the comments like, what about this, and you use so much fabric for, this size, and I don't care. I don't care. You don't know fuck all about costing in fashion. When you say stuff like that, get out of here. Get out of here. Bye. But I didn't even visit those comments anymore. Once they started screaming, I was like, peace out, in my own comment section. I'm like, okay, bye. But I can't. But in the YouTube video where I said that and I gave all of my reasons for why they should be the same price, not one comment addressing it, because they all listened to the whole lecture and they're like, oh, okay. Okay. Not to say that everyone agrees with me all the time, but they were like, oh, all right, well, that's something to chew on. Okay. So I do love my YouTube family. They're the best. So Violet Femme, I use shell to mean the outside of the garment. Yeah. Self and contrast. Tyler says, I've been designing for forever and interlining has always confused me. So an interfacing, but for the lining? Yeah, technically, I think the difference between interfacing and interlining is interfacing is something that is made for the facing. Like if you're talking about fusibles, you fuse that to your facing and not the self fabric. And then interlinings, they go in between the shell and the lining. And so I think a lot of people use the two terms interchangeably, but there are subtle differences. I do not like adding fusible to the shell if I can help it. There are some times where it's necessary, like if you are reinforcing a welt pocket, but you have to be careful to use a softer fusible so that you can't see the glue box. You know when you use like a fusible that's too stiff and you can see like the shape of the fusible from the outside. You have to be really careful about that. And so those are like one of the few times where I would agree that fusible on the shell fabric, on the underside of the shell fabric, is necessary. But if you want structure around like your back neck, fuse your facing, fuse your collar, double fuse your collar stand. Like I would fuse both the top layer and the bottom layer of your collar stand, and then the collar stand gets sewn all around your neck, and that will provide the structure so that the collar's not stretching out. So that's another thing where you have to be strategic. These days, when people talk about interfacing versus interlining, I don't think they get too lost in the weeds between the two linings because they kind of know what you're talking about, and it all kind of depends on the pattern shape anyway. So mock welt pockets are a pet peeve, but they also make me laugh. Silly little mock welt pocket. Listen, mock welt pockets are stupid because maybe it's just me, but sewing the little strips, like cutting the little box, sewing the little strips, and making that all look nice, that's the hard part. And so adding a pocket bag after that is like, why not? Like, you already did the hard part. So to do a mock welt pocket is so dumb. It's so dumb. Now, I saw a thread about this the other day. So I just want to clarify something, okay? If you are at a store or you already purchased it online or whatever, and it had a pocket or it looked like it had a pocket and you notice that it's been stitched shut, okay? Two things. It could be a mock pocket. In that case, don't ever buy from this brand again. Or it could be basted shut to hold its shape during shipping. Okay, this happens a lot. And according to this thread I read, like a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of pockets, all kinds of pockets, okay? They take big basting stitches, okay? Some of these stitches are like an inch long, but they're quickly basted shut. These pockets are basted shut, but like the thread is kind of hidden so it looks nice, so that the pocket keeps its shape during construction, like the rest of construction, during finishing, during shipping from the factory to the designer, from the designer to the store, like all the shipping and running around that this garment has to go through before it gets to you. Like sometimes the a lot of the time in a more quality garment, those pockets are basted shut. And then when you buy the garment, you're supposed to pick out the stitches. Okay. So go ahead and just like try to open the pocket really carefully, feel around for a pocket bag maybe, but see if there's just like some really big little zigzaggy stitches in there and see if it's just been temporarily basted shut and there's actually a pocket bag in there. Same thing with like a miter vent in the back. I see this sometimes in the wild and I'm like, no, girl, like, let me clip that for you. Is, when you have the kick pleat in the back of a coat or a jacket, and sometimes brands will stitch a big old X and keep that vent closed again to keep its shape and everything nice during transport. Because like, shipping guys, they don't know anything about taking care of clothes. And so like maybe one flap of your jacket back gets folded up and open, and then the fabric is pressed in and it just stays like that and you can't get the wrinkle out. So you fold the vent in the back with a big old X in the back, and then when you receive the garment, you're supposed to pick that X out so you have the freedom of having that vent back there. Which is why I don't like Italian style suiting. Italian style is when they don't have the vents in the back. And I'm like, that seems restrictive. I don't like that. Just personal, like, I like the ease of like sitting down and having some give and that sort of thing. Hi, Rouge Vixen. Only time I'm okay with polyester is reusable shopping bag. In clothing, I'm icking. Yeah, I have a bunch of reusable grocery bags. I've never checked the fiber content. It's just most of them I got for free somewhere, some giveaway or whatever. So, yeah. It's not touching my skin. It holds my groceries. Um, yeah. Do. Siobhan just randomly sprinkles like laughing emojis. Love it. Siobhan says, yeah, I'm cold right now. Every time I have my smoothie, I'm cold for like 2 hours. See, that's different, okay? I will be sitting there doing absolutely nothing different, and all of a sudden I'll be cold. Rouge Vixen says, having mental changes since mid-20s. Yukiko Divine says, I'm getting more acne in my 50s. I don't want to hear that. Like, I haven't had an acne issue in so long. Like, most of my 30s and my early 40s, like, I would get the occasional chin pimple during my cycle. And that's kind of it. And now I'm just like, ugh, I'm so bumpy right now. Rouge Vixen says, sick AF on the t-shirt print shit. I'd rather draft from scratch on an OG design than shitty stuff. Tyler says, I'm praying for a slow fashion revival. Listen, I had said this, and I don't know if I kept it in or not, in the group runway review video that's coming out on Thursday. We were talking about ready to wear in these luxury houses, these big ready to wear, contemporary price point, luxury price point brands. And a lot of those brands, they make their money off of bags. They make their money off of bags, shoes, perfume, jewelry, that sort of thing. And they sell very little ready to wear. And for those brands, I was like, just use dead stock. It's not like you ever run inventory on this stuff. It's not like you make a lot of stuff out of it. You'll make 6 pieces from one style and call it a day and sell, hundreds of $1,000s worth of a bag, of the Seasons It bag. Just use dead stock. Rouge Vixen says, excited for plant-based fabric linings. Siobhan says, yeah, the catchy list stuff. Yeah, no. I have no idea what you're referring to. Tyler says pointless mock welt pocket. Yeah, all fake pockets are pointless. Like, even if they're like, listen, I also hate a stupid little pocket, but even little pockets can hold something. Like, I hate the tiny little pockets in girls' jeans, women's jeans. It's so stupid. But at least I could put my keys in there. Okay. Unlike a fake pocket. Mm. Hmm. Rouge Vixen says, faux pockets on jackets, etc., and ladies wear is a waste of money. I'd rather add the real pockets, never buy from the store, and make deep pockets. Tyler says, or for hanger peel. Hanger peel. Elazar says, pockets and back vents. My dad didn't realize until I opened it up for him, and now he actually likes wearing his jacket. Every once in a while. So my father passed away in 2019, but like every once in a while, he wasn't really like super gung ho about me going into fashion. But every once in a while, like, when I was working in menswear and I gave him his first leather jacket and, little things like that, or when I would alter something, I'm like, you like a daughter in fashion now, don't you? Rouge Vixen says, love the British suit and men's pattern drafting. Italian looks fit but uncomfy on the shoulder, but the American ones remind me of my dad. I'm trying to remember the last time my dad wore a suit. I think just to my graduations. Jace Sherman says, so smart. Don't understand the small pockets in my jeans also never fit anything in it. Well, if you're talking about the actual little itty bitty pocket in a pair of 5-pocket jeans, so if you've ever heard that term 5 pockets, it's referring to your 2 back patch pockets, your front little pockets that you can actually put your fingers in, and then the teeny tiny little square pocket that's inside the front pocket. It's gone through several iterations. The initial purpose of that little pocket was for pocket watches because, jeans were developed over 100 years ago when people wore pocket watches. Men who are wearing jeans for day labor carried pocket watches, and that's what that little pocket was for. And then over time, people started wearing wristwatches, and it became a coin pocket back when people used coins. And so people would put coins in there, enough for a payphone. Okay, so the other day, my husband told me he saw a TikTok about these teenagers were hanging out with their mom or dad, and they had called cash 90s money. Not like, I was like, you mean like coins that literally were minted in the 90s? You know how all money has the date it was minted like right on it? Well, at least for US money. I don't know internationally. I don't know much about money. But in the US, all coins and all bills have the year it was minted written directly on the bill or coin. So I'm like, are they talking about cash that was minted in? He's like, no. They're talking about cash, period. Like, kids don't use cash anymore, so they call it 90s money. I don't like this at all. Anyways, so for a long time, they were considered the coin pocket because you always needed a quarter to call home or whatever, right? So, coin pocket. And then people stopped using coins, also payphones. And so it became a condom pocket for a long time because there's just enough room for one. And, you know, maybe promiscuity had gone up a little bit the world over, that sort of thing. So that's a little bit of fun. I don't know what the terminology is now, but when I was coming up as a fashion student, it was for your pocket watch and then it was your coin pocket. And when I was in school, we all just called it the coin pocket, just enough for a couple coins, right? And then later on, somebody was like, yeah, it's a condom pocket. Nobody uses coins anymore, Zoe. Yeah. Uh, Siobhan says the industry doesn't conjure the image of a secure job, that's for sure. That's interesting. I got an email from this guy, and he was talking about he was trying to decide between two fashion schools, and one of them is my alma mater, Otis College of Art and Design, here in Los Angeles, and which is why he reached out to me to ask me a couple of specific questions about my experience at Otis and whether I thought it was valuable to my career. And he kind of told me his future career goals. He wants to work at a big brand. And what I told him was, if you want to work at a big brand, then you should probably go to New York and start networking over there and try to get internships at the big brands over there. Otis actually, to my understanding, has the better technical background. Garment construction classes, last I heard, were electives in their design program over there. And they push theory and design development on a more cerebral level than a construction level, whereas Otis teaches a lot of skills, just like all the just like the raw skills designers need. And my program was rigorous. We learned a lot of garment construction, illustration, and presentation, like textile science, costume history. Like, it was very skills based. And I would say that there was plenty of design development involved, but it was really trying to be well rounded in getting people hired at a job. And they did have a career development office. They still have a career development office. I get alumni emails from their job boards being like, "Are you looking for a job?" Like, I've been graduated for over 20 years, and they're ready to help alumni find jobs. Like, that's their whole thing. And so, yeah, there's schools that cater towards, like, yeah, let's get you an industry job. There's enough industry in LA, has been growing since I went to school, that yeah, they can prepare you for jobs and give you connections. And the new chair that I say new, she's been there for a long time. She's new to me. Like Jill, she's very focused on reaching out to different brands in the LA area so she can make connections and send her students there as interns and whatnot. And so that's really, like, they're trying to build like a stable base where designers have a place to go in terms of jobs. Whereas I think Parsons is a little bit, they're a brand name and they're known for uh, pumping out big names, whether they graduated or not. Like, I think, I don't think Marc Jacobs finished. Donna Karan didn't finish. Like, there are a lot of people who went there, and I've lost track of who actually graduated and who didn't, but they're known for a lot of these big names. Personally, I think it's a lot of networking more than the school, but whatever. Like, so yeah, it kind of depends on the program you go to and whether they're prepared to help you find work. I always tell students, and this is across the board, all majors, any area of study, is when you are interviewing and talking to them about possibly going to school there, ask them if they help you find a job. I went to this school in Germany. My girlfriend was looking at master's programs, and so I went with her. It was an excuse for girlfriends to travel around Europe, but also I wanted to help her find her perfect grad school. And we went to this one school, and I asked them, like, what do you do to help students find work after they finish your program? And she's like, that's not our responsibility. The students need to put in the work. And I was like, well, no, I am aware that students need to put in the work, do their studies, put together a banging portfolio, a resume, all those things. But you are the industry professionals. You are the ones established here in the city, and you are supposed to have the industry connections to help your students. Like, they can work their little butts off, but they probably have not had the opportunities to develop their network, which is one of the key components of looking for work. And so, do you have anything where you have a job board, or you have like a directory of companies in your city that, hire fashion people? Like, what anything do you have that helps your graduates find work? And she's like, that's not our job. And I'm like, then she's not giving you her money. because that's absurd. Absurd. You want her to give you that much money, and then the second you cash that check and she walks across that, you're like, peace out, bye. No, absolutely not. Do not give your hard earned money to a program like that. Okay? Ask them. Ask them, do you have a job board? Otis always had a job board. When I was at school, it was just online. And that was even before the internet was like all that, common and accessible. It's not like it wasn't a thing back then where you just wake up and jump on online. Like you had to make the effort to set aside time to be on the internet. And they had an online job board. They had a career development office. But also there's like, I did form good relationships with my teachers, and a couple of my teachers helped me find my first internships and my first job out of school, that sort of thing. So you do also have to do the work. I'm not denying that students do need to put in the effort, but there are a lot of things that a school should be able to offer that a single student cannot do for themselves. So always ask whatever school you're applying to, whether you are, studying linguistics or fashion design. What's going to happen? Like, how do you find work? That sort of thing. Rouge Fixin says 5 to 7 inches in jean pockets for women's wear is nice, but 5 below inches, that's damn lazy. When iPhones were much smaller, like I was just always happy to get a pocket that could fit my little iPhone. Now iPhones are so big. Y'all, I was just looking for my phone. I'm looking at it right now. I'm doing a live stream on my phone, and I'm like, oh, where's my phone? To show people how big my phone is. And I don't even have the biggest phone. But anyway. One time, I remember my sister-in-law, she told me this story. She was talking on the phone with her dad because they were supposed to meet up for lunch. And he's like, are you on your way? And she's like, I'm at home. I'm going to leave the second I could find my phone. On the phone. She's like, on the phone. And she's like, I'm going to leave the house the second I could find my phone. I was like, girl. And she's like, no, I realized the second it came out of my mouth, I was like, oh. Anyway, back to the comments. Tyler says, love the 5 pocket history knowledge. Well, you want the pocket to be at least as long as your hand. So at least 5 inches. Yeah. When I am drafting pant pockets, I literally put my hand on the paper and I'm like, like if I'm doing like an on-seam pocket for sure, I'm like, we'll just put a little bean-shaped pocket. And I have smallish hands, so I try to go even a little bit bigger if I can. So Siobhan says, yeah, seems like art and technical schools connect you better than state schools for sure. I don't know what to say about that. Like, I think it's a school by school basis. Like technically FIT is a state school. They are part of the SUNY system, the State University of New York system. And that's why their tuition is much more reasonable than Parsons, even though I hear FIT has a great program. So if you're looking to study in New York and maybe not lose life and limb and give up your kidneys to study, FIT is an option, and you can network in New York and attend school there. And of course, FIT has an amazing museum. I always check out what exhibit FIT has going on at their museum when I'm in New York. I check the Met, I check the FIT museum every single time. Violet Femme says, a job board is the bare minimum that a school can provide. I am saying. Because, these companies, they're also looking to hire. And a lot of people like to hire from their alma mater because they are familiar with the program. They have kind of a gist for what they learned and how rigorous the program was. And so if they liked their program and they felt like they benefited from it, they want to hire from that alma mater. I went to an Otis fashion event last week, and there were people there who are like, no, I really like to hire Otis kids because I know they got their shit together. Not to say they won't hire non-Otis kids, but like if you graduated from that program, there's like a certain caliber that you're like, yes, they learned this. I know they did, you know? Siobhan says, I prefer the smaller ones to be able to put in small bags, lol. Oh, like phones. Like I'm good on the huge screen. iPads are good for that. You know what? That is what I told the Apple Store lady who was helping, because I got the. So listen, I typically get, when Apple announces that they made huge improvements to their camera, I get the new iPhone. So I have the latest iPhone because the new camera is good, because I shoot all my videos on my phone. So it's like buying new camera equipment plus a working phone. And, my whole job is on the internet. So I like to have a good phone. And I'm always shooting content, like pictures that I'm going to post on Instagram and all this stuff. And their camera is really good. But I got the second to biggest one. This is the Pro, but not the Pro Max. There's a slightly bigger one. And she's like, oh, why don't you want the Pro Max? Not in an obnoxious way. She's just asking. And I said, well, my hands are only so big. And also, like, if I get a much bigger phone than my current phone, I'd have to buy a new gimbal. I'd have to buy a new tripod. Like, I cannot be replacing all my equipment. No, thank you. And also, I have an iPad. If I want I have an iPad. If I want a big screen, I'll just use the iPad. Like, I'm not watching movies on my phone. Just TikToks at best. So, yeah. The camera upgrade, I was playing around with it in the store, making sure that the camera was so much better before we pulled the trigger. And the zoom on the video. Yeah. Tyler says, hey, I went to community college. It was ... all right, lol. There are good schools everywhere. Here's the thing is, when it comes to adjunct faculty, okay, that's the fancy word for part-time teachers who only teach a few courses at a school and do not have full-time positions there. A lot of the time they're part-time, but they will also, and the assumption is they're also working in the industry, but a lot of the time they're also teaching at other schools. When I was at Otis, pretty much like all the adjunct liberal arts faculty, all the English and art history professors also taught at Santa Monica College, which is a community college in Santa Monica. And so I was like, yeah, if you want to do your liberal arts, not during the school year, just go to Santa Monica College, because they have all the really good Otis art history professors. They're teaching over at SMC. Just go over there and do summer school art history classes, the lower division ones, your 100, 200 courses. It's the same teachers. So, yeah, go do that. So you can find good teachers everywhere, anywhere, whatever. All right, it has been 64 minutes. So I'm going to close this out. A couple things. If you have purchased my book, Fashion School in a Book, and if you have not left me a review on whatever website you bought it from, please do leave me a review if you love my book. I would appreciate that a lot. And my Croquis template sketchbook is available. It's back in stock and available for sale. My etched bleed proof for marker Croquis template sketchbook with, Croquis templates, flat templates. Okay. These are for sale. All these links are at zoehong.com. So go check that out. Thank you for joining me on the live stream today. We covered a lot of topics. Let me know if you want further information on any of the topics that we discussed today, namely linings, So, oh, I just got a flurry of comments. R says, hey, I also went to community college for a semester, only did sewing one, got a job almost immediately in bridal alterations, crying emoji. Okay, I don't know. Violet Femme says, thank you, Zoe. I've learned so much. You're welcome. Siobhan says, that's good work, I'm sure, for sewing. Yeah. She also says that, yeah, thanks so much. Fun to chat with all of you. Tyler says, I can't stand alterations. R says, all I've learned is bridal designers suck. That's, oh man. Y'all need to go, maybe I'll do like a collab with Bridal Sewing, my friend who does a YouTube channel all on bridal alterations. And you can tell when a bridal designer has experience in garment construction because the way their tech packs are, they will construct a garment that makes it easy for bridal alterations, like easy to take apart, to taking at the waist and taking at the, all these things. And because there are different ways to assemble dresses, that makes it easier for alterations and makes it more difficult for alterations. So yeah, there's a whole thing about that. Tyler says, give me some paper, tape, pencil, ruler, and let me cook. I feel like that. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, should I video this? Ooh, all right. Atelier Paul says, great pattern draft. You making your own wardrobe is really interesting. I love it. I am excited to just keep making stuff for myself. I am going to go back to making my raglan track jacket. Like, I get distracted easily, but this is my creative journey. You guys know that this channel is just my creative journey. So once I make this leather tank, I actually might make a dress. I'm kind of tempted to just add a skirt to this tank and make a dress. But also, because I do think I have enough leather for it, but also I want to go back to my original jacket block and draft a raglan so that I can do my lightweight raglan. So the Who Needs a Bridal Alts video, go check out my friend's YouTube channel. It's called Bridal Sewing. And she's been doing it for years. She has videos on so much stuff, just like straight up alterations, industry talk, walking around New York, sourcing, just all kinds of stuff. Okay. And then Ray makes this, love watching you make stuff, has 100% inspired me to draft my own clothes. Yay! I like it. Everyone make your own stuff. All right, I'm closing this out. My company uses her videos for training. You should tell her that. She will be so flattered and pleased. Okay? Her teaching is great. And I love her voice. I could listen to her narrate literally anything. Like, she could read me my car manual and I would listen to it because her voice is so lovely. All right, bye, y'all. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.